If you've ever felt discouraged on your journey with brain injury, we want you to know that you're not alone. And today we are talking about gratitude and reflection with our next brain injury community panel and a spotlight from Dr. Jeremy Schmoe. There is always hope, and you are not alone. Hi, I'm Cristabelle Braden, and this is my brain injury podcast, Hope Survives. This is an uplifting podcast to bring hope to your darkest days. As a survivor of traumatic brain injury and multiple concussions and re-injuries, I know what it's like to struggle to find hope. I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did, and that's why over 10 years ago, I started an online community called Hope After Head Injury, which has now launched into a nonprofit organization called Hope Survives. Hope Survives envisions a world in which every survivor of brain injury and every member of their family are seen, loved, heard, valued, supported, uplifted, and never alone. This podcast is an extension of that, and I'd love to invite you to join along as we explore the realities of life with brain injury, with messages of encouragement, interviews with doctors and professionals, and survivor and family stories. No matter where you're at on your journey, there is always hope. With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. A little faith, hope survives. Hey friends, welcome back to Hope Survives podcast. Today we are bringing you a panel on gratitude and reflection as we head into the holidays towards the end of the year. This is a time that we consider what we're thankful for, and I am so grateful that we have this community, that we are able to come together to encourage each other, and that we have this panel. We have three incredible panelists, Holly Kostrzewski, Robin Luftig, and Joi Kue, talking about living with brain injury. And what makes this panel unique is all three of them had different types of injuries. Robin's injury was an acquired brain injury. Joy's injury came from hydrocephalus and brain surgeries, and Holly's was a traumatic brain injury. And so I just love hearing all of their different perspectives because they all also had brain injuries at different seasons of life. And so this panel is really encouraging, and I hope that it brings you light and encouragement and to know that whatever you're going through, you're not alone. At Hope Survives, we're here to walk this journey with you. And if you're listening to this while it's coming out live, thank you for being part of our community. If you're listening later, we are so glad that you're here as well. I know people will listen to podcasts at any time, but if you're listening to this in November 2025 when it releases, I want to share that we have our first ever Giving Tuesday campaign happening right now. It is very exciting. It's our first time in our first year as an official nonprofit, and we are just so grateful for the opportunity to come alongside the brain injury community to serve those who've had brain injuries and their families. So if you participate in year-end giving, or if your family and friends, if you would like to share with what Hope Survives is doing and how we've helped you, all the information is at hopesurvives.org/Giving Tuesday. There's a public toolkit that can be downloaded and shared. And we want to make it clear that we are not raising money from the brain injury community. Our goal is to raise money for the brain injury community. And so just a simple post on social media to your network, sharing with people at your church or anybody that you know that you think might be able to help out a little bit could go a long way. We are so grateful as a nonprofit that we are able to serve. And so this is a new world for us, and we are grateful and excited to run our first Giving Tuesday campaign officially as a nonprofit. So thank you so much for being part of our community. We actually have some incredible workshops coming up here as we are ending this year. We have a brain injury Bible study group for Advent. Early 2026, I cannot officially announce yet, but if you go to hopesurvives.org/workshops, that will be added very, very soon. We have some great things coming up next January, February, March that are already booked. We are so excited for the future of being able to support brain injury survivors, family members, loved ones in so many new and exciting ways. So if you've been around at the podcast, thank you for being here. And honestly, I'm just so grateful that this journey has helped me, and being part of Hope Survives helps me to know that I'm not alone. So I would love to now go into our spotlight with Dr. Jeremy Schmoe, where he is going to share about the importance of gratitude. So let's hand it over to him.
The power of gratitude and just being thankful. It's obviously it's very important, but it's also important neurologically because it's going to drive your whole dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Positive thinking, attitude, all of that has a lot to do with recovering and getting better, I believe. So I do think it's really, really important for getting better. I also have some people that are very grateful, very thankful, but they're just not getting the right rehabilitation. So they're not getting better. So it's like it's this thing where it is so important, and you could have the best attitude, but be doing all the wrong therapies as well and not get better. So it's interesting for me because I think that we can tap into both. You can do all the right therapies that make sense and work on that whole mindset, and that'll get you to where you need to be. So I think you can be pinpoint precise with the therapeutics that are done to get people better faster. And I do think that your mindset and all of that has a huge role in regulating your frontal lobe activation, which will help you build plasticity and BDNF, brain derived neurotropic factor, and help get better blood flow to the brain and help regulate your autonomic nervous system just through your cognition and the way that you think. And so super important.
Thank you, Dr. Schmoe, for that insight on gratitude. We want to take this moment to thank the Functional Neurology Center for sponsoring Hope Survives and this podcast. The FNC's personalized neuro recovery programs offer hope for those suffering from brain injuries, dysautonomia, vestibular, chronic pain, stroke, movement dysfunction, developmental disorders, PPPD, FND, and complex post-concussion. You can learn more at thefnc.com, and we are so thankful for your partnership and to be able to share what they're doing. So thank you, Dr. Schmoe, for that. And without further ado, let's get on to today's interview. This is a great one, today's panel. It's a great one. We're excited to share this, and my hope is that you leave this feeling encouraged, uplifted, and that you're able to see areas of gratitude in your own life. Today, I would love to welcome our panelists today for our panel on gratitude and reflection. Thank you so much to Robin, Holly, and Joi for joining today to talk about this. I am so looking forward to this conversation because gratitude is so important on the brain injury journey, but it's also not always easy to hold on to. So as we're getting started, can you introduce yourselves to our listeners? When did you have your brain injury? A little bit about your brain injury journey. So, Robin, would you go ahead and start us out?
Sure. My name's Robin Luftig. I had my brain injury in April of 2011. I had a seizure out of nowhere, and that left me paralyzed on my right side, and I was unable to speak. So I was rushed to the hospital, and they found the tumor on my brain. And the doctors said if there was anything I wanted to do, anything I wanted to see, any place I wanted to go, I had 10 days to do it because they weren't sure that I was going to live after the surgery. So I still have weakness on my right side. I had a 9 hour surgery. And after that, I went through months of speech, occupational, and physical therapy. And like I said, I still have weakness on my right side. And I struggle with memory and balance. But all in all, I'm doing really, really well.
Thank you so much for sharing, Robin. And as one of the things I'm grateful for in your story too is that you're representing a type of brain injury. We've had a lot of TBIs on our panels, but being able to share an acquired brain injury and that journey you went through. And I'm so glad that you're here and that you have been able to recover. But I'm sure it's been a long journey that we're going to continue to get into. So thank you. So, Holly, would you share a bit of your journey?
Thanks for having me. I am Holly Kostrzewski, and I sustained a traumatic brain injury in a motor vehicle crash when I was 18, which was 26 years ago. I was injured because my passenger was not wearing a seatbelt and he came flying into me when we were hit on his side. So I have a coup contra coup brain injury, and I had, meaning all four sides of the brain were damaged to some capacity. Um, I had to learn to read, write, walk, and talk again, and I have a seizure disorder from the brain injury. I would say that I too, Robin, had to do all the OT and PT, and I failed so many times. Oh my gosh, I failed and I quit. To be honest, I quit because it wasn't until I found the right OT and PT for me. And now I would say the hardest things for me are still the being tired and the headaches.
Thanks, Holly. Thank you for sharing. Joy, how about you? Some of your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Joi Kue. I had hydrocephalus, which means fluid on the brain, as an infant, and had a number of brain surgeries done to repair the damage, as well as put in a VP shunt, which connected a tube from the side of my brain here all the way down to my belly button where it would empty all the excess fluid out. It wasn't until the 4th grade that they discovered that I no longer needed the shunt, so they completely removed it, and I haven't needed it since. So I'm very thankful that I'm alive today to that just that overall testament of being free from it. And yes, the hydrocephalus is completely out of me also. So I'm also very thankful about that. I was diagnosed with my TBI as a young child. I was going through, like you, Robin, I also had to go through a number of therapies when I was a young child. I had to go through occupational therapy. I had to go through PT. I also had to go through speech. And I think one of the biggest hurdles that really, really affected me was my speech, because after all the brain surgeries were done, my brain suffered so much damage that I was also diagnosed with a learning disability, attention deficit, a lot of issues with keeping friendships, relationships, issues with social cues, knowing if someone was being serious or joking around, that sort of a thing. And it was hard. It was hard growing up, and even as a grown adult, 30 plus years later, um, that's how long I've had my TBI, is 30 plus years. So I've had it basically from the time that I was diagnosed with it at the tender age of 2 or 3 years old, I think, all the way to now. Um, the hydrocephalus may be gone, but my TBI will always be there, and the problems, not to mention the balance issues, will unfortunately always be there.
Yeah, thank you, Joy, so much for sharing. And you guys touched on this a little bit, But I want to ask, what were some of the first emotions you felt when you realized the impact of your injury? Now, Joy, yours was obviously at birth, right, with hydrocephalus, which is a totally different thing. But as you've grown and realized more about brain injury and learned about it, I would love to. Well, we'll start with you here. Just what are some of the emotions that you felt through that?
I think the biggest emotion that I felt was hopelessness because I define myself so much by my TBI, and that has been a huge, as the quote says, Debbie Downer. And it it has hurt my soul so much that I'm not able to really focus on living life to the fullest, and I think that's one of the biggest emotions that I've had is just that feeling of hopelessness and not being able to move past what I have gone through with my TBI, and just the overall feeling of allowing it to define me so much and not being able to focus on day-to-day life.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for sharing honestly. Holly, how about you? What are some emotions you felt when you realized the impact of your injury?
I guess my first thought is I'm really grateful I couldn't realize it all at the beginning, because of my brain injury, so I couldn't actually analyze or see what was gone or what was missing or because it was so day by day and so many appointments that I was just busy. I was just busy. But I would say in retrospect, if I had to go back, incredibly lonely. Um, I had terrible depression and suicidal ideation and very frustrated. Um, and I'm now grateful that like, this is, like, the good part of the internet to me is, like, I've always said Cristabelle is, like, one of my brain sisters, since we've never met in person, but we've chatted for years, and I have these other brain sisters around the world, and to have this sisterhood of people you could talk to that say, like, "Hey, what about this?" or "What do you think about this?" or "This is what I'm going through now," or "Have you tried this?" But I didn't have that 26 years ago. There were only men and, brain injury groups for specifically for men, and the neurologist decided that wasn't a safe environment for me. That is a young 18-year-old young lady with just probably a lot of men with frontal lobe damage. So I think that if you layer back the onion, a lot of frustration, a lot of depression, a lot of grief and loss. I think when they talk about the fractured self, that is a really important thing to discover for yourself. What part is fractured and what can you do to help heal that fracture?
Mm. Thank you so much, Holly. Robin, how about you?
I think mine was because it came on so fast and so quickly, and it was okay. You have a seizure, and then boom, you're going to have surgery in 10 days, or you're going to die. So that was jarring. It was just so jarring, and I went through a lot of. I questioned it. I was confused why this happened, and then I was doubtful that no, it couldn't be happening, and then had to try to prepare for what was happening. So it was just a lot of activity. And like Holly, I had a myriad of doctor's appointments trying to, I mean, they knew why I had the seizure because the tumor was so large when they saw it, but they kept trying to see if I had seizure components to my situation. So they would stress me out trying to make me have a seizure. And it was the freakiest thing. So it was all of this happening at one time. And that was some of those first emotions that I was trying to um, just hold and just try to get them to get my head around what was really happening in my life. A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thank you all for sharing those emotions. It's hard. It can be hard to talk about, and it can be hard to go back there and to, especially as you've all moved forward and you're all on our Hope Ambassador team and you're all just very much have moved forward in your life to revisit that. I know it's hard for me to talk about sometimes to like put my mind back there. So I appreciate your willingness to share because some people listening might be in that spot right now when they are first grappling with their brain injury. That's a lot of times when they find the podcast because they're looking for answers or searching for something. And so I would love to follow that question up here with, how did you find gratitude during those hardest times in your recovery? So, Holly, would you share first?
So, this is good. I love this question. So I was a dancer, semi-professional ballet dancer prior to my crash. And after my crash, I couldn't dance. I can't keep beat anymore. My brain doesn't know how to keep the beat. I can see the dancing in my brain. I can choreograph, but I can't tell you if it's on 6, 5, or 2 beat. But my mom was always really big on celebrations and to celebrate everything. Like sometimes even she would like bake a cake or buy a cake and say, well, it's somebody's birthday, so maybe we should celebrate it. And so every little tiny celebration of anything good that would happen, because there was colossal things happening, with me and with our family and grief and loss. But anytime there was the slightest bit of a win, we would celebrate. And I started doing the happy dance. And my mom didn't want me to feel alone or silly in public. So if I was doing the happy dance, and I had to live with my parents, I couldn't live alone. It wouldn't have been safe for me to live alone. And so I lived with my parents till I was 29. But we would do the happy dance in the grocery store, in a hallway, wherever it came upon us that we were having a moment of joy. And we know we weren't buying the cakes anymore because there's so many medical expenses to pay for now. So our joy wasn't the cake, but was the happy dance. So I love to dance still. And there is always something that you can find good in the day if you look hard enough and you look up and away from your phone or your device or away from a screen. And you, like, for me right now in Minnesota, like our leaves are starting to turn. And I'm like, isn't that so magical? Like fall, like change is good. Like we don't always want to change. We want to resist it, but change can be really beautiful.
Thank you, Holly. I love the happy dances. And that's kind of like celebrating every win, every little win. That's really beautiful. So, Robin, how about you?
I was very fortunate that this happened so quickly and so many things were happening that I didn't have a lot of time to get bogged down. But I knew that I had to choose to be happy or choose to be grateful because that was one thing that I could control. I couldn't control what the doctors were saying. I couldn't control what was going on around me, but I could control my heart and my attitude. So some days were harder than others, but the medication that I took to make my tumor constrict was a steroid. And because I was on a steroid, I was up. I think I slept 2 hours a day for those 10 days. And what do you do? But you go online. And I started writing all of the people that I could remember that lived far away that had impacted my life and that had made a difference. So I took though because I didn't know, I told them, I said, I don't know if I'm going to be here the next time you're in town, but I want to make sure that you know that you made a difference in my life. And just by speaking it, by looking outward instead of looking inward, it made all the difference.
Thank you, Robin. Joy, how about you?
I think during the hardest times of my recovery, I think finding gratitude, it was always super difficult for me. Um Growing up because I didn't the only pillars of support that I had was my immediate family. I didn't have like an actual group of other survivors that I could relate to. And growing up with my TBI, it was super hard. It was super hard to find that gratitude. I'm a huge music geek. um I sing, I play piano, I play guitar, I play flute. Um, I could rattle off some other instruments, but I'm not going to. And I have a huge heart for faith. And I think between I think between my love for music and my huge heart for faith, those were the two biggest aspects of my life that I was able to successfully find true gratitude in. Um, and just applying those two aspects really helped me find the gratitude that I needed. Not to mention that I have an amazing husband and an adorable soon to be 5-year-old daughter who have also taught me so much about gratitude. This October was 7 years that we've been married, and he is my primary caregiver at this point. But my husband has taught me so much about gratitude and just being thankful for just all the good things, even some of the things that are just like flat out annoying and can be very tiresome at times. That's what did it.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you all for sharing. I think about in my journey, I've had a lot of ups and downs and a lot of setbacks, and sometimes it's easier to find gratitude than other times. We've all had our injuries for a number of years now, and when you go through something for a longer period of time, something that I feel like the Lord has taught me or something I've learned is that it was about 10 years ago when I wrote the song Hope Survives that I realized that hope exists through the dark, and that when we go through hard times, sometimes that's where we find our gratitude the most, or find the brightest light or the brightest joy, because we know what the other end is like. So it kind of makes us more grateful in some ways. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I would love to hear, have you experienced any like what symptoms or setbacks? Have you experienced any setbacks in your journey, and or struggles that you would like to share too? So, Robin, can we go to you first here?
The only thing that I really, well, I won't say the only, because there are more that I just don't think about them. But um, because my memory is one, so I can't remember them. But my right side was very weak, and I had my hand would claw up. I don't know if you can understand what that means, but it would claw up, and I I thought, Lord, I don't know what's going on. But then I thought, well, okay, I'm left-handed, so that is something to be thankful for. And then I would do dishes sometimes, and splash around in the water, and I would wash Tupperware, and I would have water everywhere, and I was just trying, but I slowly got the use back of my hand between the therapies and splashing around with Tupperware. I tried to, after the surgery, I tried to be okay with where I was. This is who I am. I can work with it. I can get better, hopefully. That's the plan. And where I am today is where I really need to be. I can be thankful for that.
Thanks, Robin. Holly, how about you? What kind of setbacks have you gone through?
So I had mentioned the headaches, and I think that's like still one of my biggest problems is the headaches and the pressure. I am better than a barometer. I can tell you when it's going to storm because I always just my husband says, "What does it feel like?" And I said, "I feel like I could just drill a hole in my skull to let some air out. It needs more room or something." Um, so I would say that, and then I also have right-sided weakness. So I would always accidentally cut my hands when I tried to cut my own food because I've been married for 3 years, and so I lived alone for about a decade, and I always cut myself, and I worked with cops and for my job, and one of the cops said, "Why do you always have Band-Aids on your hand?" And I said, "Oh, I have right-sided weakness, so um, like, sometimes my hand will slip, and then I'll cut my left hand, so my left hand would always be full of Band-Aids." And he said, "You need a fish glove." And I was like, "What's a fish glove?" And he said, "If you put the fish glove on, then you can hit your finger with the knife, and you won't cut yourself anymore." and you can put it in the dishwasher. So like it's like a win-win all the way around. Now my husband just cuts my food for me. He doesn't even say anything. He doesn't ask. It just comes pre-cut to me. But when he's not home, I still have the fish gloves. So if anybody, that's helpful information. Like it's not that expensive and you save yourself, because I had to go to the emergency room a couple times because I cut myself so bad. Um, and then I'd say just the cost of healthcare in general, and I do a lot of homeopathic, Eastern and Western combined therapies, and with the epilepsy and the one of the things that I think has been most helpful is just, you know, thinking about what's going to come next and how can I help myself, like what's coming up. So I schedule my rest and I schedule things. But what came as a real surprise for me, and for other women, is menopause. I'm 44 and I'm full menopause, and the only reason they think this is because of my brain injury. And so I just wish there were more studies and research done on women's hormones that have brain injuries, because all the research is done on male brains, which doesn't really help us. Um, so I think that is another interesting thing, because I didn't even know I was in perimenopause in my 30s, and all of a sudden 44 I'm in full menopause. So, and everybody agrees that it's from the brain injury. And so I just think there needs to be more research so that more women like us can be prepared for it.
Thank you, Holly. I completely agree with that. I also wanted to ask you, you've had re-concussions, right?
Yeah.
Re-injuries. Can you share a
Yeah.
little bit about that too?
Yeah, so I was working at an event, and you know, like those like posters with like the steel frames that people put up like in a booth? Well, the booth next to me was setting theirs up, and their steel rod came down right on top of my head. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time, because I just thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a really bad headache now." And then I see, just in case it's helpful to anybody, I see a applied kinesiology chiropractor that helps with setting the body, and he does some brain balancing things. And anyway, and he's like, "No, you have a concussion." I'm like, "I have a concussion. I've done everything. I don't do anything that would hurt, that I could fall, that I could hit my head." And I get hit at a work event with a steel rod. And so that was December of 2019, right before we all went into 2020. And I thought that it was like the stress of 2020, not even thinking about the fact that I had been clunked on the head, and that's where, because there's this like rage anger that I'd never experienced before. And I was very angry for a long time until we figured out, oh, you have a concussion and we need to help you with this now. And so, um, so that was just surprising to me, because I didn't have, I have a very different personality than I did prior to my traumatic brain injury, but I wasn't ever angry or ragey. I didn't have those kinds of concerns until the concussion.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and
Mhm.
one thing we've talked in previous podcast episodes about how do you tell if it's a flare up versus a re-injury?
Yeah.
And one of the main things that defines a re-injury is new symptoms.
Yeah.
Flare up flares up things that you already have going on. Like if you hit your head, you're not sure if it's a concussion or not because you already had a brain injury. I think it was Natasha Welch that I was interviewing, and she said if there's new symptoms, then it's a new injury.
Yeah.
And that I don't know if you realize, I also had a concussion December 2019.
Oh,
That was my last like re-injury that I had, and then I had COVID, which ended up being an acquired
yeah.
re-injury as well. But um, yeah, man, it's a lot when you go through that, and there's definitely I think a lot of like fear of re-injury as well when you live with a brain injury.
So much fear. Where I went to college, it's on a hill, and there wasn't a sidewalk. And so I was always terrified that I was going to slip on the sidewalk. So I told my neurologist that, and she said, "Well, we could get you a handicap parking pass." But the judgment that comes along with having a handicap parking pass, and the looks that I got at 18, 19, 20 years old, why do you have it? They don't look like anything's wrong. And so I wrote a great poem about it, about if I should debate if I should drag my leg a little more, if I should walk slower, or like when are the gawks gonna stop? Because like, why are you looking at me? It's none of your business. It's between me and my doctor why I have this rock star parking, just to make sure I don't slip and fall.
Yeah. That's so good, and that speaks to that invisible side too, right?
Yeah.
That it's so hard. Nobody has any idea what we're going through with brain injury. So thank you, Holly, for sharing. All right, Joy, what about you? What kind of setbacks have you faced on your journey?
One of my biggest struggles I have is with balance. And I remember when I was expecting my daughter Karen. I was on my way to my doctor's office. I had just arrived. There was a small and it was very noticeable, and I don't know how I missed it, but there was a small step, just a small step up to my OBGYN's office door, and I somehow lost my balance and fell. And this was when I was fully prego. So pregnancy was a huge problem for me, not to mention my uh, ongoing problem with balance issues. That just really ruined it for me, and that was one of the things that um, luckily hasn't happened as of late. But I think balance has become more of an issue for me. I have to be more careful with steps now. I have to be more careful with steps now. I have to be careful when I'm getting out of the bed because every now and then, if especially if it's early in the morning and I wake up early to either take my daughter to the bathroom or if I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and I'm like half asleep, that's also a huge problem for me. Like my balance is completely off. So that's a huge struggle. As far as setbacks, I'm always concerned that if I hit my head, I'm always concerned that my hydrocephalus is going to come back. As far as like the symptoms, I already mentioned balance. I have issues with emotions. When I have a million things going on, I am so easily overwhelmed. I will shut down. Even if I'm having like what seems to be a simple conversation, I also shut down and I can't put words together. But those are like the biggest struggles that I have. And I wish it was better. I honestly wish it was better. I'm working on it. I'm working on it every single day. And it's been hard.
Putting words together is huge for me. Sometimes I will just blank out and I just can't even see a word. But I have to, for me, if I can close my eyes and visualize the word, then I can say it. It's just a little trick I had. I don't know why that's a big deal, but I have to visualize that word.
And to kind of go off of what you said, Robin, every time I'm in a conversation, it doesn't matter who it is, I say too much. Even when I can't put words together with my TBI, I always say too much, almost to the point of boredom. And that's also something that I've been trying to work on over the years is keeping my thoughts short and simple. And it's always been a huge problem.
I thought it was interesting what you said, Joy, because I've lived with my brain injury longer than I lived without it. So I don't really know what Holly would be like without a brain injury because we grew up together, right? 18 to 44. So we became an adult together. But when you said like I shut down, because I shut down, I shut down. And I never even considered that it could be my brain injury. I just thought it was me. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you for that. Because now I'm going to tell my husband, no, it's not my fault. It's my brain injury now. I can't, because I honestly, in 26 years, never thought about that could be why I get really overwhelmed and I just shut down. That makes so much sense.
That is really funny, Holly, that we just related just like that.
Yeah.
This the whole shutting down thing is a huge problem for me. I freeze. I literally freeze and I I just don't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I think it's really common. I've struggled with that too. I can totally relate to everything you guys are saying. It can be a lot, especially when it's something emotional. I can shut down just what do you need to get from the grocery store, too overwhelmed. But especially when it's something where there's some emotional stake in the conversation, or where you're talking about a more difficult topic, not wanting to say the wrong thing, and then just kind of like, you know, blanking or getting into yourself. I have a lot of trouble with group conversations too. Talking one on one is so much easier than if I'm with a couple other people. I'm very outgoing one on one, but if I'm in a social environment, I have a lot of trouble chiming in, because by the time they've moved on, I've forgotten what they've said or whatever. It's like, it's overwhelming.
The only thing that's helped me if in a social setting is if I can sit on the side of the table or the booth that's going to look at least amount of people, particularly a wall. Like if I can sit on the side where I just have to, there's just a wall behind people, or if you can choose that seating area in social, that then I can focus better with all the extra noise and other conversations. If I can have a wall behind people, then I'm pretty good. But that's been my tried and true method to get through the conversations in restaurants.
Yeah, I do that too. I always make sure that I'm not like right facing a window because the light is way too overwhelming, things like that. But yeah, I mean, there's so many little pieces with living with brain injury, right? And it's like you said, Holly, I also had mine as a teenager. So you kind of are uncovering as you go along. But we were talking about all these different symptoms or struggles or things that we've gone through. And there's so much more than you could say in an episode. I know that your guys' journey is so deep and rich, and there's only a little tiny snapshot we're getting here. But I would love to just ask, how has gratitude helped you to have perspective to keep going? So, Robin, would you go first here?
Gratitude has been a lifesaver for me. It just helps me keep my perspective. And when there's nothing else, there's gratitude. I would not be alive if God didn't want me alive. God had a plan, so I'm still here. So I'm grateful for that plan. And that gives me more of a purpose than just hanging out. I have a purpose that I need to fulfill. And that's been wonderful. I gratitude has helped me pull my husband in. He's been a wonderful, wonderful helpmate with this. The transparency, he's promoted transparency with this gratitude. And I can't imagine not being in that situation where I could just say, I'm having a bad day. So understand it's not you. I'm just in this. I so appreciate you that you will not give me 20 questions why I'm feeling the way I feel. And he understands as long as I let him know what's going on, it's just it's just works much better with gratitude than without.
Thanks, Robin. Holly, how about you?
I'm grateful for the years that I have on this because not much surprises me anymore. I'm having a really bad brain day. It's going to storm here. And so my brain is glitching in and out and I have a headache. And so, but I know there's more good days than bad days because I've had a lot of bad days. And so when I do have a bad day, I just remind myself that there's more good days than bad days. And my dad's 14 years after I had my brain injury, my dad became a paraplegic. And so it's been a really interesting experience in our family. Usually brain injury and spinal cord injuries, they're at the same rehab hospitals. And so um, there's nothing wrong with his mind. He can't walk. I can walk, but there's something, wrong with my brain. And so just to see um, our own personal experiences of uh, living with a disability and also watching how society reacts, because obviously nothing looks like wrong with me. And so I'm treated like I'm normal, quote unquote, whatever that is. I hate it when people say that I look normal because I don't know what that means. But to see that people will interact with me so well, but they'll treat him very differently. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity to learn and to have witnessed that too, because I think it's just made me a softer and nicer person.
Thank you for sharing, Holly. Joy, what about you?
Going off of what Robin said, I would not I would not be here right now if it wasn't for if it wasn't for gratitude, honestly. And if it wasn't for all of the surgeries that I had done on my brain, and if the doctors hadn't gotten rid of the hydrocephalus like they did, or if the hydrocephalus had been worse, I probably would not be here speaking today. And for that I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful. I'm very relieved. I did have some downs here and there, some rocky parts here and there, but the one thing, the one thing that kind of pierced through all that is the gratitude feeling. And that I think is huge.
I remember so clearly, and it was such a gift. You know, that moment when you wake up, but your eyes aren't open yet, that brief moment that you're just coming into the day right after the surgery for months, I would say, oh, God, you've given me another day. I've done nothing to earn this day. I've done nothing to warrant this blessing. And I know clearly that you're not promising me that I'll see the end of the day. But right now, I'm so thankful for the knowing that I get another day.
Thank you, Robin. That's just so beautiful, especially in your scenario, right? You were very acutely aware leading up to your surgery that the outcome might not be what you thought it would be, you know? And for those who are listening who've survived car accidents or any type of brain trauma, I mean, um, there's a very real struggle with that of surviving. We had someone in one of our support groups recently say that they wished they didn't survive because of the pain that their brain injury caused. How would you respond to that? Any one of you? Because it's not always easy to be grateful when you're living with pain and trauma. So, Holly, what would you say?
I see you. I hear you. I've been there. I had horrific neuropathic pain in my face, um, all across my face and all the way down my spinal cord for many years, like to the point that I can wear glasses now, as you can see, but I couldn't wear glasses. I couldn't have anything touch my face. I think society diminishes grief too much and too often, and that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to say you're in pain, but don't diminish somebody's pain because you're not living through their life. And so, um, that there's pain in all sorts of different ways. And our society, for whatever reason, loves to diminish grief. And you have to go through it in order to get to the other side of it. And I guess the only other thing I'd say to that person is if you're not getting the help that you need, it's okay to fire your doctors. I have fired so many doctors. And, if they're not helping you, um, and helping you so you can rest and, you can be pain free or as limited pain as possible for your bio-individual situation, find a new doctor.
Yeah, to pivot in your journey. That's so important. I love the reminder of grief. Excuse me, Holly, because we had another panel earlier this year on grief and ambiguous loss after brain injury, and dealing with that kind of ambiguous loss of the life you had before, the loss of the person you used to be. That's a very, very challenging place to be when it comes to brain injury because you're still here, but you don't feel like you've lost so many things in your life. And I really appreciate that advice to continue to go through that grief and to allow yourself to feel that, because we've been talking a lot about gratitude, but I say this a lot on the podcast that we do not want to get into that toxic positivity because hope is not positivity. And I would also say gratitude is not the same thing as positivity. You cannot just be positive and be okay. You have to acknowledge the realness of it. And that's why I like practicing gratitude or thinking about gratitude, because gratitude can coexist with grief and acknowledging this is awful and this is hard, but look at this also blessing, or look at these little things that I can be grateful for, or the people in my life that love me, or the sunshine today, or whatever it is. There are so many blessings the Lord has given us, but it's so hard to see when your brain is in a fog. It's like you can't see clearly and you can't feel clearly. And that's what I think is the challenge with brain injury, more so than other mental health conditions. For those without brain injury, it's that fog. So for someone who's struggling or having a hard time finding gratitude, specifically living with brain injury, what advice would you give? So Joy, can we go to you first here?
I would simply say don't let the struggle define you, define who you are as a person. Um, the Lord made you as unique as unique as possible. You are your own person. You are your own individual with so many unique qualities, and that only the Lord can create for you. So that personally has hit me has hit me really hard. Whenever I'm having issues finding gratitude, and I'm having issues with allowing myself to be defined by my struggles, I turn to the Lord, because I know that He has this unique plan for me, and I that has helped me better define myself as Joi Kue, and not just one person struggling.
Thank you, Joy. I love that reminder of our identity, right? Our identity in the Lord. That's really beautiful. Robin, how about you? What advice would you give to someone struggling to find gratitude?
I would say lean into truth because while emotions are fine and they're wonderful, they can take over so easily. And if we lean into truth, so what is truth? You know, I could have died and I didn't. So that's a truth. God is for me because I didn't die. So there's a plan. That's a truth. There are people around me, in my case, that I have support. That's a truth. And that truth can change, that it shifts, but it is a truth. And I am limited, and I need to be okay with that limitation. And that is a truth. So I say just lean into what is true.
Thanks, Robin. All right, Holly, how about you?
I can't have kids because of my brain injury, and then I got married at 42, and we just chose not to go that route. But I love being an aunt. I love being an aunt. Being an aunt is my favorite thing in the entire world. And I picked up my 9-year-old nephew last week from school, and I asked him how his day was, and it's always not fine or okay. And so I'd even like looked on ChatGPT what questions to ask a 9 and 14-year-old boy at school pickup so they won't answer fine or okay. And it gave me like a list of questions to ask. And my precious, wonderful, brilliant 9-year-old nephew said to me, he calls me Chuka because Chuka's aunt in Polish. He said, Chuka, a day doesn't have to be perfect to not mean it's not still good. And he's 9. And he just left me speechless. And so just a good reminder to all of us that it doesn't have to be perfect to be grateful for what's in front of you. It doesn't have to look like it used to look. It doesn't have to look like your neighbors did. And it certainly doesn't have to look like whatever person's kitchen, brand new kitchen they built on Instagram or Facebook to be good and wonderful for you and your world and your life.
Thank you so much, Holly. Thank you all so much for sharing. We are coming to the very end of our time here. And very quickly, would you share a final word of hope for any survivors or family members? So, Joy, how about you first? Any final word of hope?
Don't let your TBI journey define you ever.
God loves you. It's not, it doesn't look
Mm.
like it sometimes, but it's there.
Oh, I don't know how to top that, Robin. um, What I was gonna say though is that if I'm having a really, really bad day, nothing beats putting Tina Turner on YouTube, Proud Mary, and dancing it out with her red fringe dress from the 70s. And you just dance it out and you do to your ability exactly like her backup dancers are, or you be Tina yourself and have a happy dance every day for yourself because you made it this far. Just keep going.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. For those listening, thank you for listening along with this panel. Robin, Joi, Holly, this has been such a treat for me to get to hear from all of you. If any of you would like to reach our panelists or have questions for them, you can email us hi@hopesurvives.org, and we are glad to pass on the message. We also have their bios and information on our website, hopesurvives.org/podcast. So thank you again for being here. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in to Hope Survives podcast. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, and would love for you to consider leaving us a rating or a review. Check out hopesurvives.org for more. We'll see you next time, and remember, there is always hope.